bird from a burning star. Yes, Sensei, I'll carry who we are. Hands scarred, but still I rise again, fighting shadows where doubt begins. Your voice echoes through the faulty skies. Yes, Sensei, I'll keep the fire alive. Yes, Sensei, through the haze I'll find my way. Yes, Sensei, only you can light the blaze. Yes, Sensei, the piano plays where dreams don't decay. Yes, Sensei, oh yes, Sensei. My way. Yes, Sensei, only you can light the blaze. Yes, Sensei, the piano plays where dreams don't decay. Yes, Sensei, oh yes, Sensei. You say the fight's more than fists and flair. It's the battles won beyond despair. In the chaos, you taught me to remain. Yes, Sensei, I'll honor what remains. Yes, Sensei, through the haze I'll find my way. Yes, Sensei, only you can light the blaze. Yes, Sensei, the piano plays where dreams don't decay. Yes, Sensei, oh yes, Sensei. I catch my breath in the fading glow underneath where the lessons flow. The journey's mine, but your voice won't fade. Yes, Sensei, in my heart you stay.